I've been wanting to do a video on Mutant Year Zero for quite some time now because though it is not a solo designed game, it is, I think, very amenable to solo play. It says, "Welcome to Mutant Year Zero. In this role-playing game, you play mutated human beings in a fallen world. On your shoulders rests the greatest responsibility of all, to save the last glimmer of human civilization from total annihilation." That's not a lot of pressure, really. Quark the Gearhead learned early on that her mind terrors could protect her from the horrors of life. Out in the zone, Quark's savior was Rufus the scrap trader, who taught her how to imagine a different world. This is what saved her. But Rufus was in trouble. The rot was coming for him, and if the rot got Rufus, Quark was as good as dead, too. Krill the Stalker was one of the crew who lived in this ark at the edge of the military base. Rumor had it that he used to be one of the enforcers until things went too far. Krill knew his way around the base and the zone, and Quark and Krill had an uneasy alliance. But Quill was a rep, an amphibian mutant who yearned for the free water. With the promise of leaning on Rufus for help, Quark got Krill to agree to help her. This is the way things went in the Ark. No one ever got anything for nothing. Krill and Quark are together in their ark, which is at the edge of this military compound. And the thing that's important here is that the ark, while it is definitely a safe place, is not really completely a safe place because they are at odds with this compound and the military. And as we know, Krill had been part of the enforcers, and this is the enforcers' base, but left. And so to get out of the compound, which is what they really have to do now, is not just an easy thing. It's not just like walking out the door. But before they start to leave, there's one piece of this story that is immediate and pressing, and that is the diary that Quark has, Rufus's diary. Rufus is a scrap trader who Quark is trying to help, and Quark has found Rufus's diary, but we don't yet know what it says or its relevance, and that's where I'm going to start now, because Quark needs to try to figure out to see what the diary has to say, and then we can interpret that and see if it's going to yield any information about either where Rufus is, what's going on, why Rufus is in trouble, or something about what we need to do. To do that, I'm going to roll comprehension with Quark's wit. So for my game, the attribute die my attribute dice are going to be black, my skill dice are going to be white, and my gear dice are going to be green. So for this, I'm going to be rolling with my wits, that is a 5, and I'm going to be rolling with my comprehension, which is a 1. Every success here, I'm going to interpret as the one sort of progress step in interpretation, and I'm going to go to an outside source to give us, in essence, something to consider. And we only got 1 success with all of that. We could push this roll, and I think we probably will, because this is pretty important. And what this means is we can take the dice that were not a 1 or a 6 and re-roll them to try to get another success, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it. That was bad because we just got another. Well, we could only do it once. So basically what happened was we still have our 1 success, but now we're going to suffer 2 points of trauma to our wits, which is going to be 2 points of confusion because we got those 2 1s. So unfortunately, that's not great, but it signifies the fact that it is very, very important for I gave the confusion. I'm already confused. I gave the confusion to the wrong character. That was to Quark, so we will fix that. It's really important for Quark to figure out what this diary says and it is Quark's connection to Rufus. So to do that, we're going to go to an external source, as I mentioned, but Quark's also going to get an extra mutation point, and they each actually started with 1 mutation point, which I failed to mark. So now Quark has 2. This mutation point is going to let Quark utilize their mutation. And the mind terror that Quark has, where she can torment other people or confuse other people or create illusions to get what she wants. With 2 mutation points, she can create illusions. This will help them get out of trouble if they encounter it. So that's important. And per the story, the reason that the connection between Quark and Rufus is so strong is that Rufus was really the one who taught Quark how to kind of tap into the good aspects of mind terror, the imaginative qualities of it, and the ways in which Quark has used her mind to help her escape the horrors of this world and the rot and the decay and the anger and the fighting over resources. So right at the outset, you can see the desperation that Quark is feeling. That was some bad die rolling, unfortunately, but we're going to move on from there and see the one thing that Quark learned from this diary. What is it? In order to figure out what Quark can discern from the diary, I'm going to go to this supplement that I forgot I had, and I recently used in another video. It's a 3d6 roll, and we'll just do it in the physical order it shows up, 1, 5, 3. So the one thing that Quark can discern from this diary is this. Well, I wanted something abstract. This says to me, this is like a gear, this is mechanics or something like that. So this is going to say to me that it symbolizes something construction. Maybe Rufus is either in a place that have to do with mechanics, like a mechanical ruin, or somewhere in the zone where there are some mechanical things still remaining. So I know that there is a table. I think there's a random table of mechanical ruins. So perhaps when we get out of this immediate area, we will have a destination that is there. I don't know. But that's going to say to me something to do with mechanics or construction that's connected to Rufus that is mentioned in the diary. We didn't get much. Perhaps we'll be able to try again, but that's all we got so far. Now, we know the Ark itself is full of ghouls wandering around. We established that when we were developing this story. But what we don't know, and what's important also for the concept of this game, is that the Ark itself is going to be under attack. This may or may not impact us directly, but it's important for us to know the context of the Ark and what itself it is dealing with as this military base. And we may or may not end up developing the why behind that. But I do want to give the role for this because it's not something that we yet have established here. So it's a D66 table, so we'll read black and white to see what is the Ark itself dealing with. 21, the last drop. The water source in the Ark fails. The well goes dry, the water purifier breaks down, or the cistern bursts. Whatever the reason, it's a disaster. Whatever rot-free water is left in cans and bottles will last only a few days. Well, actually, this is great because it fits right with my story about why Krill would agree to help Quark, because Krill really seeks a free land. They both are seeking freedom from the oppression of this apocalyptic world. And for Krill, this means a place to live with more or less free water. All that really told us was giving more of a connection for the reason behind Krill's willingness to help Quark in this manner. Now, to help, what do they need to do? What they need to do right now is they need to try to get out of the area where they are to try to get out of the arc. They need to sort of sneak out from the enforcers. Again, they're in a place that is only semi-protective to them, and so we need to do some sneaking here to see if we can successfully leave the area without being seen. And for that, we got to get some successes for both of them. For Quark, so we're rolling with agility is our main attribute. And for Quark, that's going to be 3 base dice with the, he's got a 1 on the skill. No, there's no gear involved here. And that is not, we got no successes there. We're going to have to try to push this, I think, on Quark to see if we got to both, we have to have both successes. So this is telling me that maybe one of the patrols is possibly thinking they're going to hear something, but we're going to push this roll once and hope for something. Yes, we got it. So we have taken we got a mutation point there, and that was a successful push. So Quark is sneaking. So the enforcer who thought they heard something is looking around the barracks and thinking maybe that was nothing. And the sneak for Krill is going to be, Krill's a little more agile, so Krill's going to be getting to roll 5 base die, and we definitely have very bad situation here with these 3 fails. If we're going to try to push this, we're going to take some damage here. I don't know. We got to do it. We got to try to get out. So we're going to put these aside. We're pushing this roll as well. Yes, we got it. So we did succeed here, but for whatever reason, maybe Krill has some bad energy. We're going to take 3 damage from these fails here. All right, so I need to do a correction here because I never fixed the issue from earlier on that I noted in editing, which is that Krill actually did not have these 2 confusion points from before. That was Quark. So in fact, Krill does not have 5 right now. Krill only has 2. So I am going to properly correct this here. We need to consider this because we definitely have 3 points here on Krill, and we have 2 on Quark, both with our wits attribute. But the bottom line is that they are perhaps not in the most elegant manner, but with commitment, they are making their way out of their immediate area, and they're going to be going into the zone. To find the path and assess this, we're rolling with our agility, which is the 5 skill dice plus, the 5 attribute dice with the 1 skill die. And hopefully we'll get more than 1 6s. We have not, this session so far, the rolling has not been great for us. So let's hope for some multiple successes here. Again, only 1 success. And we've got this, we could push this to learn a little bit more, but it's against agility. I think we're going to push it. We're going to take a damage here because we already rolled this 1, but I need to have an option to learn something here aside from nothing. And I should have realized that this is not a good day not a good morning for us. So we're going to get 2 points here on Krill against agility. Quark's going to have to take over. And the way that Quark understands the environment, Quark is a scrap accumulator. And she is going to do a search in this sector, in this area. Maybe we'll learn something about the area by some scrap that is found. I think we're going to have to be relegated to doing that. And I think the way we will do that is rolling on Know the Zone here. So Know the Zone is really for encountering a creature or a phenomenon, but we're going to use it here to, in a more abstract way, to say we're looking at the actual environment. So he's going to be rolling his 2 white skill die with wits, which is going to be 5. So we're going to be doing 5 and 2 and looking for 6s again. And finally, we're getting some multiple successes. To determine what is outside here that we see, we're going to give ourselves 2 rolls on this Wasteland Treasure table. I'll put the link to this down below. And I'm going to roll on the war zone area. There's 3 different types of tables here: ruins, war zones, and basically the bodies of enemies. And I will, well, maybe we'll do 1 roll on the ruins and we'll do 1 roll in the war zone, because we're sort of possibly in a war zone because this is military base, but there's also obviously clearly ruins. So in the ruins area 85, what do we see here? 85. A sealed polybag enclosing a like-new relic chainsaw, never used, no fuel. I mean, a chainsaw could be useful. I'm not really sure we're going to pick that up and carry it, though. So in the war zone area table, we're going to get to a 74. Compass, military grade, rugged, folding, and comes with pocket flashlight in cover, but mini parasol drained. 12% chance has a hidden location beacon built into a wrist strap. The hidden location beacon. You know what? Let's see. If we roll a 12 or less, we're going to get something. We're going to get some kind of benefit. That's just not going to happen. Didn't happen. All right. So we picked up, I think we're going to leave the chainsaw. We picked up a compass, and we've got a pocket flashlight. So the question is, can we use this compass in some manner to help us figure out where we're going? I don't know, but I'll make a note that we picked it up. We're going to continue to walk here, and we're going to investigate more. We're going to roll with Know the Zone, basically, I think for both of us, to see what more information we can get about where we are. And so Krill's looking around, and Krill, as the stalker, is pretty adept at interpreting the environment. And so we're going to roll with our wits here, as well as Know the Zone. So see what we're getting. Well, we got 1 additional success, so that's going to give us a +1 to whatever information seeking we're going to do from Krill. And we're both looking around and quietly, because we don't want, we managed to get out. We know that there are some ghouls coming around out here, and there may be other threats out here, but we are right now just attempting to see what we can see. And we got, nice, 3 successes. Well, 1 success and 2 more. So this is going to give me 3 rolls on looking around the environment more. And to do that, I'm going to go to the main book, which has a creating the zone section, mood elements. These are not direct threats. These are just various environmental elements that may or may not be interesting to us. Ultimately, it's a D66, so we're going to go black and white, and we're going to get to roll 3 times on this based on our collective 3 pushes, or rather stunts that we got. 23 is zone flowers. Out of place in the pale zone lands, a field of strange flowers with striking colors grow. Okay. 56, a hut. Someone has built a nest or hut made of scrap. Is someone home? Well, this is going to interest Quark, because Quark is always a scavenger and has picked up this. Quark has picked up this compass here, and we failed immediately initially I should say, to see whether that hidden beacon was actually there. But maybe Quark is going to look around for, this is what Quark does as a gearhead, is investigate scrap and try to build things. Maybe Quark they're going to go into this hut and try to see if there's something there that can help. All right, and then the last roll is going to be 51. A hole. There's a deep, dark hole in the ground in front of the PCs. Is it an old well, a path, or a path into the tunnels below. So we're standing in front of a hole. There's a hut in the distance. Did it say how far away the hut was? It doesn't say how far away the hut was. It might be time to go to we know the hole is in front of us. It might be time to go to my solo RPG wallet. How far away is a thing for the same place? This is a 2d4 table. This comes from Scarlet Heroes, and all right, these are pretty good post-apocalyptic D4s together. So, how far away is this hut? This hut is 2 away. Oh, close enough to touch. We're standing right at the hut. Well, that's pretty close. So there's a hole and then there's a hut. And maybe the hut is crumbling, something like that, but essentially the hut is pretty close to where our PCs have gone. And I think they are going to investigate that for sure. But the other thing we need to understand is the rot level in this segment. So I'm going to roll on that with this D3. It's a 1. It's weak rot, so we get 1 rot point every day. This makes sense because the rot level was in our arc was also the same thing. So we'll need to account for that, and it's still the same day at this point. So I think we're going to investigate this hut, basically. I think that's what we have to do. As we are outside the hut here, we're going to have Krill attempt a comprehension roll, and we got 3 6s on that roll. So that's telling me these 2 extras are going to allow for a, I can never remember what this is called. Let's look it up. A stunt. So for every success rolled beyond the first, you can teach someone else how to use an artifact. Well, this was supposed to be actually, I guess, for using an artifact, so perhaps I didn't use this correctly. Perhaps I was really looking at more like, well, I don't know what that would be. That would be perhaps know the zone, but you know what? It's the same. It would have been the same roll. So let's just say that was a know the zone roll, and do we give any stunt suggestion here? You get the answer to one of these questions about the creature or phenomenon. So in this case, we'll say about the hut is how can it hurt me? How can I hurt it for extra 6s that we roll. So we rolled 2 extra 6s. So this is going to tell me that I'm going to get to, well, that turned out to be a little apocalyptic. The world is indeed fracturing. These 6s, these 2 6s are going to tell me that I'm going to get to ask some question about, is there something in this hut and what is it? So we're going to go to some oracle table here, and I'm going to, it's probably likely that there is something in here. We'll stick with this one. Is there something in here? I'm going to say it's likely that there's something in here. So is it? Oh, 20. Yes, there is definitely something in here. And so the second stunt we're going to pull here is to ask ourselves, what is that? And I have drawn up a table here to begin to answer this question. I think I made it a D10 table. And what I've done here is we are going to roll a D10. It's either going to be a threat, an NPC, a scrap, or an artifact. And I gave percentages to those things loosely based on what seemed to be realistic to me. So we'll find a D10 and give this a roll. And we rolled a 2. So a 2 is a threat. So there was a 50% chance that it was a threat. And if it's a threat, this is what I've chosen. Now, the rot ghouls we knew were already in the arc. So I gave that a 50% chance. It could be another humanoid or another monster. So we will see what is in 7. It's going to be some other humanoid. So we sneak up to this hut. We look through the window, and based on our skills, we're able to discern that inside there is a humanoid of some sort. And let's see what, there's a roll I think that we can do. I think it's sneak to determine. Let me see what, yes. we're going to do scouting to see if we can learn something more about what this is, and if we can, we will roll on I'm going to draw up a random table for what type of humanoid it is, so we get some sense of it. Otherwise, we won't have a sense of it. And so that is, what did I say? That's scout. Who's got the better scouting here? Well, that's clearly Quark. So for scouting, that's going to be on wits. So Quark is going to roll wits plus 2 scout to see. Well, we only got that 1 success, but nevertheless, we're going to be able to determine what this is. And for that, I'm going to go to, I said it was a humanoid, so we're going to go to that section of the book and randomize it. In the section of the book, Threats in the Zone, we do have this humanoid section. Mutants, humans, let's see. Looks like we've got 15, including the zone ghouls. We've got 15 possibilities here. So we will do this D20 roll and just do a re-roll, I suppose, to see what is inside. And then maybe we'll do a D3 for how many of them. We got an 11. So let's see what is inside this hut. And a scrap oracle is in the hut, a short and stocky mutant dressed in a bizarre outfit made of scrap of all shapes and sizes. He's an oddball character with powerful mental mutations, just like we have actually, a telepath that can see visions of the PC's possible future. His powers can help the PCs interpret a clue to Eden or guide them in some other way. You can use the scrap oracle to nudge the PCs in some direction. Interesting, because we said previously we're not really sure in what direction to go here, and we have this scrap oracle, so maybe we will try to, there is some type of manipulation, or I have to look up that skill again, empathy, kind of communication, opposed roll. I think it's an opposed roll. That's what we're going to do. We see the scrap oracle, and right away our gearhead sort of perks up. So Quark perks up because the scrap oracle is kind of akin, basically almost like a cousin to Quark, because as we recall, Quark, first of all, does have mind terrors, and Quark is an inventor and a gearhead, a scrap finder, and this hut here perhaps is full of scrap, discarded remnants and things that the very nearby military institution Ark no longer needs, and there is a scrap oracle rummaging through it. So the two of them are, Quark and Krill, going to come into this space and try to interact with this scrap oracle in a positive way to kind of get something from him, to get some information, to get some help. I don't know. We will find out. As they open the door to the hut and see the scrap oracle there, we can turn to the rules to do a social conflict roll, which is that of manipulate. Now, unfortunately, neither of them has that as a skill, but both of them can just roll their agility, or either of them, I should say, can roll their agility, their empathy. And in this case, it's going to be Krill who steps forward and is going to attempt to engage with this scrap oracle to maybe just play on their humanity, if that's a word that could be used in this context, to help them figure out how to go, where to go. Maybe they would know where Rufus, the scrap trader, is, or something of that nature. Now, this is an opposed roll, so unfortunately, per the stats of the scrap oracle, they actually do have manipulate as a stat. They have a manipulate 2, and they have an empathy of 3. So they're going to be rolling 3 black attribute dice and 2 of these, and they only got 1 success. Unfortunately, though, all Krill can do is just roll these 3 dice. They can push the roll. So there we go. We got our 1 success with their 1 success. So it's kind of like so Krill approaches this scrap oracle, who is maybe looking up from a pile of scrap that he's trying to sort through and parse out what could be useful, and is wary, but neither defensive nor helpful, let's put it that way, with this. But I think we could opt to try to push this with these 2 dice and see, can we get one more success? And we did not. We got a fail. So what's going to happen there is Krill is going to take a point of damage, get sort of some doubt is starting to creep in, but also get a mutation point for that push. So it's kind of a stalemate here. Now, in this moment of stalemate, we know that Quark can step up because Quark's mutation is Mind Terror. Quark's got 3 mutation points, and the options here are that Quark could try to confuse this Oracle and sort of make them believe something by using 2 points. That's not really going to help, but could also maybe make the Oracle trader miss the next thing that they're going to do. And as maybe, I don't know how we can influence the situation. We could create an illusion that might cause the Scrap Oracle to think that we are, perhaps this is what's going to happen. Quark is going to spend a mutation point, and with the way this works is it's an automatic success. You can just spend the point to do the action. And the action here of Mind Terror, we're going to take a look at this and see. With one, it says torment your victim with visions that inflict confusion or doubt. Your choice. I think we're going to go with doubt and equal to the number of MP spent. Well, here's how we're going to do this. I've got 3 mutation points here, and this is very interpretive, obviously. I'm going to spend them all. I'm going to spend them all to cause this scrap trader to feel confusion, doubt about what he's doing, looking through these pieces of scrap, and lose his sense of mission and just sort of find himself standing there with Krill and Quark, who then start to engage with him and talk to him about their mission and what they want to do. And because he is having doubt, he will maybe not provide them with the information that they seek, but agree to either join them on their journey or at the very least stop the repetitive task that he's doing to try to go through this scrap himself. And at this moment, then Quark the gearhead starts to look through the scrap and starts to think, maybe I can build something that's going to help me, or we could do some rolls here to ascertain what he might find, whether it could be useful, and proceed from there. But now I think the outcome of this social interaction is that we're now going to have another PC join us, and it's going to be this Scrap Oracle. And I think I'm going to stop here and just say that the way I would continue to develop this is I think I would go into the backstory of the Scrap Oracle, because it seems clear to me that this is going to be a PC coming along with us now. And out of that backstory, perhaps I would find some connection to Rufus. Perhaps I would go to an oracle to determine, is there a connection to Rufus? How likely might that be? And then if there is, what is that connection? And sort of take the story from there. Living in a place called the Ark, and we're going to create that together. And it says the Ark is an island in an ocean of chaos. The people have made it so far, but the threats to the Ark are getting worse and becoming more frequent. Acid rain, disease, attacks from wild beasts or savages from the depths of the zone. You have to protect your own, you have to explore. And I think this works really well for solo play, as we will see when we get into it. I'm actually going to follow the getting started suggestions here to first create the player characters, then choose our zone and create our arc, which is creating the environment, and then start to play. If you watch enough videos on my channel, you know that often I will say I prefer to start with an environment and then put my character or characters into it for a variety of reasons. But here I'm going to follow the suggestion of the book, and also this video will, as you'll see if you're watching it, conform to my new structure, which is, if you watch the video straight through, the next thing that you're going to see is the story playing out. And later you'll see how I develop that story. If you want to see first how I build the character and build the environment, click forward to that portion of the video to see the behind the scenes machinations that go on to get to the story that's about to start. I think I'm going to create 2 characters in my story here, and I have gotten questions on the channel as to how I decide how many characters I'm going to go with, and in this particular case, the feeling of kind of cowering together at a location that you have created and patched together for yourself is something I want to have some dynamics between the 2 people that are here, and maybe build out their backstory, and maybe that will be, maybe their backstory will be related to what happens in the session. I don't know. It's really just a feeling thing that once I started looking through this rule set, I thought I was going to do 2 characters. So we're going to go for 2 of them, and at least one of them I'm going to show you exactly how I construct. Maybe the other one I won't, depending on how long it goes. So the first thing we need to do is pick our role. The role determines who we are and what we do in the arc. We have the enforcer. So this guy looks like a fighter. A gearhead. This is like let's see, like an inventor, a motorhead, a tinkerer. I like that concept. A stalker. So we've got a scavenger, monster hunter, rot finder. That's good. Maybe maybe the gearhead and the stalker together would be a good mix. The fixer, a wheeler dealer, vicious creep, juicy info. This is kind of cool, and if I was playing this with a group, I'd be interested maybe in being this character, but I find that that is a little challenging for solo play to have, like, if making a deal. I think that's adding a level of interactivity that could be a challenge for me. A dog handler. This is a bloodhound, fight dog, mutant's best friend. Not chronicler. Oh, everything must be recorded. The chroniclers are tasked with writing down the fate of the people. A boss. A grunt. Kind of an overall cynic, rebel, or resilient. These 2 early on are speaking to me, the stalker and the gearhead. I'm going to go with a stalker and a gearhead. Choose your role. We're going to be a gearhead. Choose your name. I'm going to hold off on the name for the moment. Define your appearance. Distribute 14 points across the 4 attribute scores. Now, we know we've got our 14 points here, and everything is 2 to 4 except the key attribute may have B5. So for the gearhead, our key attribute will be wits. So we'll give wits a 5. And let's read up. So we're a tinkerer, an inventor. I think we're going to go with, we're going to give strength of 4, because maybe we go out and it says the zone is an empty wasteland littered with useless scrap and garbage. Maybe we go and find these things and move around in spaces. So we're going to give 4 to strength and empathy. Maybe our empathy is going to be pretty low. Our agility could be, I'll go 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's only a 2 empathy. Well, we're a street person. Maybe we have a traumatic past. We don't have a lot of empathy right now. But we're going to be with somebody, so their key attribute is going to be 5. Now, of course, we don't have to go with 5 here on this, so we could modify the wits to 4 and maybe give a little more empathy. I don't know. They're going to be more evened out, I think. So we're going to go, that's 8, 3, and 3. I don't know. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that. Distribute the 10 points across your skill levels. Okay. Role-playing is a conversation. Indeed it is. The GM sets the scene, you describe what you do, the GM tells you how you react, the story grows one step at a time. So we have these skills, and they are all linked to various attributes, and it says there's 12 basic skills in this game. Any mutant can use them. Every role has one unique 13th skill, and we'll note that down, and they're all connected, as we saw. We can still use the skill even if it doesn't have a benefit. Then we're just rolling our basic attribute when we're making that roll. Jury rig is the special skill of the gearhead. Find the path is the special skill. In the interest of time, I have populated my skill totals off camera, I've built them for each character around the special skill, the specialist skill that each has. So the gearhead has this jury rig skill, which basically allows them to build something out of found materials. And maybe this will happen in our game, hopefully. It's kind of cool because you find components, and it says before rolling for this, you describe the parts you have and how they're going to work, and then it gives you what happens, like if you succeed or if you fail, and if you get more successes, then you get some choices about what happens. So that's pretty cool, and this shows you how there is some structure in the game that is what I would call GM independent, meaning it's built into the game. There's a list here. You can randomize this or choose yourself, but it gives not just an outcome, but choices and something beyond the outcome. And that's very helpful for the soloist when rule sets have things like that. There was an indication that the gearhead says the zone is your personal promised land, that it's like a rich area for finding things and doing things and tinkering around. So I gave the agility, the move benefit, and the scouting benefit, and knowing the zone area. Those were prominent ones, using wits as the attribute, and we have some fighting and sneaking abilities here and a little bit on comprehension. So that's the gearhead. The stalker, the specialist skill for the stalker is find the path. And it says any fool can walk into the zone, but if you don't know what you're doing, you'll soon end up a corpse. So find the path is rolled when you go into a new area, and it will allow you to find things and have safety in traveling. And so as such, I gave my stalker the know the zone, has a couple points here, comprehend, understanding, some shooting ability. Shooting and fighting also seem to be important for this character. This character was a loner who went into the zone a lot as a kid, and I think my backstory of the two of them is that they were childhood friends. They're perhaps in their 20s now or 30s now, who knows, but in the past they met in the zone, each of them there sort of on the DL doing something. The stalker was a loner and had their own reasons for going into the zone, and the gearhead was just propelled by this desire to find things and build things and maybe help their family in some way with their skills of building and creation, and somehow in the past they met. Next up, we're going to choose a talent, and it says talents are tricks, moves, and minor abilities that gives you a small edge. They are more specialized than skills and gives you a way to fine-tune your character. So we have a limited choice here for our characters. The gearhead talent could be Inventor, a +2 modification when they use jury rig. Well, I like that. Motorhead, this is something with a vehicle. I'm not going to pick that one. Or a Tinkerer, +2 mod when you jury rig to repair, but not when you build something new. Well, I'm going to go with the Inventor. I want to build new things. I'm more concerned with that than fixing things. For the Stalker, we have Monster Hunter, which is a modification when we scout a beast of any kind. I kind of like that. Rot Finder, when using Find a Path, we have access to something new if we roll extra successes. Well, that's interesting. And Scavenger, we get a modification to Find a Path when we find any artifacts. I think I'm just going to go with Monster Hunter. We'll choose those two talents, and then we're coming to the conclusion here. Now we have to draw a mutation. You don't get to choose it, we just roll it. So we're going to do the D66 roll, one of my favorite types of rolls, and read orange and red. And we're going to roll first for the gearhead. So this is just going to be whatever happened to them. 32, and that is Mind Terror. And for the Stalker, 53. 53, re-roll. 12. Amphibian. Your body has inherited traits from fishes and reptiles, making you equally at home underwater as on land. And we could breathe underwater. We can use our scales to absorb damage from external attacks. And we can bite an enemy at arm's length with our numerous small and very sharp teeth. A slight defensive benefit, a slight offensive benefit, and should we be underwater, we could breathe under there. Not sure that's going to come up. And Mind Terror, sounds pretty interesting. Mind Terror. Your brain has the ability to affect the minds of others and create vivid hallucinations at up to near range. We can torment our victim with visions that inflict confusion or doubt, equal to the number of MP spent. We'll talk about MP when we get to it. Confuse others to make them miss their next action. Only works on humanoids. I like it. Create an illusion so grand the victim will believe it to be real. That's cool. So this Mind Terror, it's almost like a kind of psychic ability to manipulate, and I really like that one. So this Mind Terror is more outward looking. It can control something external happening to you, and this amphibian one, potentially it offers this defensive capacity or a basic further attack. So those are the mutations. So we're coming to the conclusion here. The relationships to the PCs and choosing your big dream, these are things that are going to be tied to the story, and I think they're going to be tied to our arc, which is our homestead and the zone. So I'm going to leave that off here until we get to developing the arc. I'm going to sort of build that in conjunction with each other to create the zone. And conveniently, there are D66 tables throughout this section, the GM section of the book, in order to do that if you want to do it randomly, and we will. So we'll be rolling our D66, reading the black and then the white colors of the numbers. So we got 42. So the zone itself is going to be crumbling ruins. So crumbling ruins there is going to be a ruin there, so we will roll for that. There's going to be a threat, and there's going to be an artifact. Okay. Let's see, the industrial one is going to be 16. A military base. So we're in the zone is going to be the ruins of a military base. We know that. We do have a threat here, so we will roll on the threat table, and we'll see what type of threat it is. This is just a D6, and then we'll develop that. It's going to be a humanoid threat. And the humanoid threat will be 66. Zone ghouls. Okay. Perhaps these are old fighters, or I don't know. So the threat is, there's some zone ghouls here. That does not sound very good. And it also indicated that there would be an artifact, yes. And actually, I see here that there's a little description here of the military base, a large square courtyard with brick buildings on each side. In the buildings, there are a great number of identical rooms with metal bunk beds. Beyond these buildings, there's a large enough garage with several burnt-out vehicles inside. Okay, so it's a sort of, it is ruins of some structure like compound, in essence, is the industrial ruin that we are there. When stalkers tell harrowing stories by the trash can fires in the Ark, they are most often about the zone ghouls. These aggressive people live like nomads in the zone, moving in the shadows and attacking other travelers without warning, most active at night. Many zone ghouls are generally shorter than mutants and move in large groups, hide their faces, etc. We have some stats for them. And in direct sunlight, they take 1 point of damage per hour despite their protective clothing. Doesn't sound friendly, but this is post-apocalyptic after all. All right, now we will go to the artifacts section and roll. This is a D66 table. So we will go black, white, black, 5, 6, 3 for our artifact. 563 is stimulants. Maybe the zone ghouls are trying to reanimate themselves with some type of stimulants. Let's see what this is. These tiny white pills look unimposing, but if you eat them, they will immediately sharpen your senses and make you very alert. You might not sleep for a few days. It describes the effect when eating these pills, heal all confusion points that you have suffered. I'll explain that if it comes up in gameplay. There are only enough pills left for D6 doses. When you have consumed them, you must discard this artifact. It's a tiny item. The development requirement and bonus, I'm not using this in this game, and I'll talk about that in the discussion. This is really scraps. I mean, there's D6 stimulants somewhere here. Well, there's 6 of them. So we'll make a note of that. I don't know if that's going to come into play literally. It might come into play thematically. For reasons I'll talk about in the remarks at the end, I'm going to skip over any detailed development of the arc per se, aside from indicating that my characters are huddled in a scrap village or a scrap fortress of the sort that's indicated here in the book, that they have pieced together through the recovery of discarded parts of the ruins of the military base. So they're hiding in the zone of the military base. They have some rudimentary shelter. They have rudimentary access to water. And that is the amount of development of the arc that I am going to do. We need to get a level of rot in the zone, and we rolled a 1 here. So it's weak rot. We get 1 rot point every day. And the last thing we're going to do to get things started is to roll on this D66 table for events in the zone, which is going to be a beacon in the distance, is going to be the zone event, and a beacon in the distance. The zone is full of threats and dangers, but also opportunities. Give the PC something to strive for, to journey toward. It can be a mysterious light in the distance, a building that seems strangely intact, a gate to an ancient shelter, a group of strange people, or something else. Well, perhaps I like the concept. There's a military, we're in the military zone, a ruin of a military. Maybe there is some intact structure that has an alien artifact. Maybe we're looking at a kind of Area 51 scenario. Maybe this is the part of the military base that was involved in alien experiments or something like that. So we'll have that floating out there, and in the arc itself, we are going to see whether we've got something with 52, and 52 is an NPC gets into trouble. So this is telling me that there is going to be an NPC who is related somehow to our 2 characters, and that NPC is going to be in trouble in that area that's in the distance. And I like this concept of maybe they have to explore a building that is, as was suggested here, strangely not in ruination. We're in an area of ruin, but there is, within the zone, there is something that is not crumbling, and perhaps there is a light inside it, and perhaps it holds the promise of some less decayed materials that our characters can get to help bolster their shelter or protect themselves or build a better place to live. So they are going to be leaving their shelter and investigating this. They're going to be moving toward this structure to see what's inside the structure and to try to recover it, maybe, or get it to use as scrap, or to do a building project. Our gearhead likes to build things, and maybe the immediate mission is to find something to recover there. There's one thing I didn't do with character creation, and that was with the gearhead. I didn't give the gearhead an artifact. And it's that D66. We're going to go black, white, black again. 661. What do we have? What does our gearhead start with? 661. Oh, it's a reroll. All right. 243. A diary. A diary. Interesting. So it's a worn notebook with handwritten text on the waterlogged pages. If you can read the old one script, you can make out what it says. This artifact connects to the game's meta plot. Read more about it in Chapter 16. Well, that is something from a story or an adventure, a pre-planned adventure that we're not actually running here. But it is going to connect to my meta plot, and it is going to be the recovered memoir or diary of somebody who did indicate that there was something of value found in this building, and I'm just going to say it's alien tech or something like that. Maybe it's actually actual aliens, I don't know, but between us and them are these ghouls that are running around. We are in an area of decay. This is a ruinous place in the military installation, and the remnants of the military installation. Actually, in thinking about it more, I realized that I keep forgetting about this NPC gets into trouble, and it seems that the NPC has the Gearhead's diary is from this NPC who's in trouble in some way, and maybe the diary is more like scraps of paper that, well, it could be a diary, but something left from the NPC who maybe detailed perhaps some secret experiments, some mutation experiments that were going on in this military installation compound or something. And then we have evidence that this NPC is in trouble here. And I think I need to fix these sheets because they're too small for me, but I never really detailed the relationship between the stalker and the gearhead, but I think the NPC, whoever this is, maybe was what brought them together, or they all met out in the zone somewhere, and the two of them have come together in this story to work together in an uneasy alliance to try to help whoever this NPC is. I think that's going to be the NPC is going to be the nexus of this, the driving force that the two of them are together, are venturing out to go toward this structure and either rescue the NPC or discover the secret or something, and that's going to be the story. I think that's it. All right, so I'm just putting a few finishing touches on this development here. I started to redo this character sheet, and as you can see, I threw it away because I didn't think I was going to show it in the video, but it is relevant because I just couldn't see this, and I decided to print out the fillable character sheet and transfer the stats. And while I was doing that, I started to really think about the characters, and I hadn't so much developed their relationship in my mind for the story. I said they were like childhood friends, but in a way, that concept doesn't make sense because in this world, there isn't much of a childhood. And once I got that idea, in this world, there isn't much of a childhood, it started to come together for me in terms of the story and how I'm going to develop it, and that they encountered each other. It's kind of an uneasy alliance, and they actually have competing goals because Quark, the gearhead, is someone who was the child of some military personnel and really rebelled against the outpost and the commander of that institution, where that compound where they lived, and was going out on their own into the zone to tinker with things and build things and just try to have some kind of life outside of the institution of the compound. And that was enforced by their mutation, this mind terror, that they can influence the brains of other people, they can confuse humanoids, they can create illusions, and in doing that, they got a glimpse of what imagination could be and what a life outside of this rough and tumble world where everything is about getting food and water and just surviving and and opposing the rot that is the world in which they live in and the decay, they found beauty in their mutation. And part of what helped them do this was deep in the zone, they found a scrap trader, somebody who also, in their own way, tried to create something new out of this world by dealing in the trade and barter of various scraps that their minions went and found for them, and Quark had a relationship with this scrap trader, and that's who they need to protect. That's Quark's backstory. And all that really came from as I was transferring this material over and reminding myself of what the mutation was and trying to situate this character Quark somewhere. Then I had my stalker, and the stalker's mutation was amphibian. I gave the stalker the name of Krill. This is someone who also, in their own way, is trying to escape the torment of living in this world. And they got a glimpse of it they found a clean water source that they could live in and swim in and utilize their otherness, their amphibian otherness in. And they have heard rumor of, it doesn't fit on the sheet, I have to write it in. They heard rumor that there is some place, like an idyllic place called the lake, and the lake is a place of clean water, of maybe a remnant of the before times. And so their dream is to get to find the lake, to get to the lake and escape in that way so that they can live on their own and kind of embrace their mutation. So the key buddy, they have this uneasy alliance because there really aren't true friendships here, but they have this uneasy alliance. And the source to tie it into what I had rolled up, that Quark had heard that the scrap trader was in trouble and is going to ask for Krill's help in locating the scrap trader, and with the promise thereafter of maybe enlisting the scrap trader's knowledge and their minions that go out into the zone to find the lake for Krill. So simply the act of transferring my stats onto these different character sheets helped me think about and begin to get the story. And then I was looking for some kind of background thing, and I found these. I found this, which I'm going to probably use at the beginning of the video. It's not so great because it keeps coming apart. And then I think for the military installation, or perhaps the venturing into the zone, I found these that I think could possibly work. So depending on how things get developed, you may end up seeing these at the beginning of the video or shortly thereafter, the introduction, as we have this pictured for the kind of backstory of the actual session. Some final thoughts on Mutant Year Zero. I think if you watched the video, or most of the video, you'll see how well this is suited towards solo play. And part of the reason for that is that almost every thing about the characters that is a specific characteristic, like a skill or a special talent, is explained narratively to some extent, and the outcomes are explained and detailed to enough of an extent that it can create that connection from something, from a die roll to a story. So, for example, just opening here randomly, looking at this agility, if you perform stunts with that, if you get extra successes, it gives you some different options, and you could choose one of these things that happens, and these can help direct your story. So, for example, you could decide that you inflict more damage, or you pin down the enemy and then the enemy gets fatigued, and then that tells you something about the story and the interaction beyond just that you inflicted another wound. Or you get an initiative score. Maybe your enemy drops a weapon that you could then go pick up and use and have. It just gives enough of an additional few sentences and description that help carry forward the narrative. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is and the talents here are the same way, that there are choices for different talents that you can elect at the beginning of character creation, and they have titles. They're called something. So you could be an archaeologist, or you could be a gunslinger. Again, just a word, but enough that will allow you to develop that character with a little bit of a backstory, with a little bit of a personality, perhaps. So that's one aspect in terms of character creation, that from the outset, they are more than just numbers. The actual mechanics of the rolling the d6s, getting the successes, assembling your skill dice, your attribute dice, your gear dice together, and then the possibility of pushing the roll and what that means, that also it has a built-in emotional component. There's a tension there. Are you going to be a character that really tries and pushes, and then what you get from that, your mutation points that then allow you, perhaps even compel you to utilize your mutation for whatever it is. It and it makes it very possible, and in fact it almost makes it imperative that the characters are differentiated by their mutations, that the mutations come into play quite a bit. Similarly, the way conflict and trauma occurs, and the way you can get conditions of dehydration and starvation and confusion, these too are storyline developments, so that you're not just getting wounds, you're getting confused if you continue to try to do a certain type of action that is failing, or you are constantly having to manage the hunger and the thirst. Now here I have, for the solo play that I'm doing here, and were I continuing this off camera, continue to modify the way that works to make it a little bit less bookkeeping, because for me as a soloist, that's not as, I want to keep the feeling of that and the necessity to consider that, because it is part of the world and inhabiting this world and the story, but not all the actual bookkeeping. And it's pretty possible to do that and to modify that here. One thing I did skip over the details of, and if you watch this entire video, you will perhaps remember that I said I was going to skip over this, is in developing the arc, there are some aspects to it that, as the soloist here, I did not do. And what this was it allows you to develop different aspects of this community, the food supply, the culture, the technology, and the warfare level of your specific arc within the zone. And then, based on these development levels, there are a whole bunch of projects that the people who live in this community with you can undertake and can do. And then you can also get benefits from those, or detriments if they fail. I think this is an excellent aspect to the rules for a group, because it provides a living kind of world that the players can go back to, even if in the particular they're not dealing with one of these development projects. This could be put into a campaign, it could be a session. Too much to manage for me as the soloist, and I didn't really utilize any of the aspects of these things, but there's a library that could be one of your projects. Militia, you could be developing a tavern. So for a group, I think this is, for a GM, for a group, this offers quite a bit, and for a group of players to agree upon what's going to be in their arc, what in their community, what they're going to develop, and what benefits the individual players might get from it, is it's a great aspect to the rules, but for me, for the soloist, it was just a little bit too much, so I skipped over that. But it is in the rule set. It's in the main rule set here, as you could see. Ditto these threats against the Ark, which are in a D66 table that we did roll on once just for atmosphere, but as a soloist, you could use this to be the basis for your entire session, or if you were running multiple sessions, you could have multiple. This could just be the structure of your whole session, because there are stories here that there's a derelict oil rig and you can read about what it is and the information and artifacts you find about it and create a mission for your PC or PCs involving that, really involving any of these things. So that's yet another way to, if you didn't develop the story on your own, as I was developing my story, you could simply go to this section of threats against the Ark and have a place to start. The zone itself has, and the sector, there are a lot of different tables here that you could develop, and you could place your characters within one of these. There's also various types of monster threats, humanoid threats, phenomenon threats like night lights or ghost lights or a tornado that you could pick and choose from to create your own story that was based, this says creating the zone, but you could also choose to ignore the concepts of arc and zone entirely and just place your characters in some post-apocalyptic kind of world and roll on these tables to create the environment. So you have a table here, mood elements, that will allow you to put into a place people and nature and weather and some type of remains, events even, and terrain. Really create, in a pretty simple way, create an environment for yourself. And this is a little bit more of a development off one of the tables of the ruins table. So you can have a small description of what an abandoned mall would look like, or a radio station, etc. So a lot of different random tables and descriptions within the book, and similarly you have threats, individual NPCs that could be enemies that you could fight, all here in this very book. We didn't really too much get into artifacts, but again, the remnants of the other world are here. It's another D66 table. Oh no, it's a D666 table, and then they are all described. We had an artifact with us, but this too could form the basis of a story. If you put someone in an environment, you give them an artifact, and they have to deliver it somewhere, and then you can create a very basic sort of pick up and deliver story where you roll for wandering monsters, which would be some of the NPCs that were wandering around. You could roll for terrain. You could get into interacting with terrain and looking for things. You could set up in a very easy way a travel scenario through an environment in a post-apocalyptic world using just this rule book and really no other. There are in the back, in the Game Master section, there are a couple of, I think there's 2 different environments that are developed even with maps and things like that. I didn't even get into that or need to look at it, but you could pick and choose among here for various events and NPCs who are here and place them into your setting. If I were recommending how to start here in a very, as I said, in a very straightforward manner, that's exactly what I would do. I would roll up an environment, and then I would create for myself maybe a D6 or a D8 table that listed various options of things that could happen. One would be just continuing the scene, continuing the travel, continuing to roll up the environment. One would be encountering an NPC. One would be doing a search to find an artifact. And on the basis of that, even with just a lone character, travel through and create a story along the way. So that's very possible to do in this Mutant Year Zero. I was approaching it in a different manner by trying to create a little bit of the backstory of my characters and have them have some type of motivating goal that pre-existed their travel into the environment, but developing that goal along the way, just as you walk around in this world, is extremely possible. And as I said, a very straightforward way to approach this as a soloist. I was editing this video and realized that I forgot to talk about one of the rules aspects that I think is so great for any rule set, really, but is perhaps very useful for soloists, and that is the social conflict rule here. We saw this in play in the opposed role when we were trying to bargain or manipulate with the scrap oracle. And what I didn't mention, but could have mentioned, is this concept of bargaining position here. And you get pluses and minuses to your role depending on various circumstances, like you have more people, or what you ask for doesn't cost the opponent anything, or perhaps it costs the opponent a lot. Now, in the case of our story, I had ascertained off camera, and as I said, I didn't go through this on camera, that while we did have more people, that could be a benefit, and while what we were asking for may or may not have cost our opponent anything, we also didn't know how valuable that information was, and we also didn't know whether the opponent would have anything to gain from that. So the net result of those 2 pluses and the 2 minuses was just a wash. So this didn't come into play. But for the soloist contemplating these questions about the story, each of these questions provides a potential for a branching narrative to take effect and to be developed by you. And it is in this type of rule set, or rule and mechanic in a rule set, that I think the soloist finds a great home for interpretive work and for gameplay without the benefit of having another player there who is the GM, because the rules themselves ask questions and allow you to use your imagination to answer those questions in various ways. The answers will impact the die rolling, which is always nice when there's a direct connection between a narrative answer and a mechanical impact. But they're built into the rule set, so you can do this all on your own and develop these kinds of scenes, particularly non-combat scenes, in a really rich way. And that's another thing that I think Mutant Year Zero offers for the soloist that makes it such a solo-friendly rule set.